What's going on, guys? Welcome into the Fantasy Tap Week 5 waiver wire additions, must-grab players, and streaming options at both the tight end, the quarterback, and some defenses for you all this week. Now, if you guys had a great week 4, let us know who your favorite player of the week was down in the comments below, as well as being subscribed to the channel. Make sure you guys hit that like button and that little bell icon so you don't miss any of our live stream videos coming out this week. Now, we're going to start out this very, very early and quickly. Let's jump into the quarterbacks of the week. And these are some guys that you can stream. And honestly, all of these guys, except for the last one, are people that if you're picking them up and streaming them, you may want to roster them just due to their future matchups or how they're performing so far. First on the board is obviously it's going to be Taylor Heineke. He showed out this week, looked like an absolute stud, finding himself able to get in the end zone in any sort of fashion, had 3 passing touchdowns. Last week had one of his first rushing touchdowns of his career, and just able to do it all. Over the past 3 weeks, this guy's had 9 touchdowns as well as 868 yards. So this guy right here is someone who you can play as a low-end quarterback 1 if you have to, depending on the matchup, as well as someone who you can play as a quarterback 2 in a Superflex league and be extremely confident that he's going to carry you over into a victory. This week, he's going to be going up against the New Orleans Saints, and that's not the scariest matchup in the world. Depending on how the game goes, it could turn into a real big shootout, and at that point, we could see Taylor Heineke throw for another 3 touchdowns and over 300 yards this week. He does follow up that game with playing against Kansas City, Green Bay, and then Denver. So honestly, I think we're looking at some games where it's just going to turn into big shootouts, and that Washington football team's defense has been keeping their offense on the field a lot lately. So let's keep throwing Taylor Heineke out there and starting him when you can. Next up, we got Sam Darnold, owned in 18.7% of leagues, and definitely not a name I ever would thought I'd recommend players to be picking up in fantasy football. But the man's just doing it this year, showing that leaving Adam Gase effect. Sam Darnold's had 10 touchdowns already this season. He's a top 5 in passing yards and already has a career high in rushing touchdowns, and it's been 4 weeks. I think everyone's still looking at Sam Darnold from the Jets. Even myself, I'm just starting to get over that, okay, the guy's terrible motif. Even though their team hasn't been playing against the best competition, they've still been able to keep a very high-powered offense, even in games they shouldn't win. I think that Sam Darnold's someone that you need to be rostering. If he's on your waivers right now, pick him up. He's worth a bench spot over a shot-in-the-dark receiver, shot-in-the-dark running back, or a shot-in-the-dark tight end. If your quarterback goes down at any point and you've got Patrick Mahomes or Lamar or someone like that, Sam Darnold's going to fill in that spot, and you might not even notice the difference. Someone else you might want to pick up, and it's kind of a risky play because it's going to be his first start, possibly all by himself, and that's going to be Trey Lance. He is owned in 18.3% of leagues, and this week going to play up against Arizona, who's been allowing 250-plus passing yards from every quarterback they've played against. There is a possibility that Trey Lance is going to be showcased this week, and they might ask him to do a whole lot of things, especially in this divisional game and in front of the Arizona crowd that's going to be seeing him a lot this year. So I think that Trey Lance is someone that if you need to slot in a quarterback and you're just streaming this week, don't be afraid. I think I might take the shot on him if I had the opportunity, but give me him this week and then kind of just see how he plays out. They do go on bye week, and they do go on bye in week 6, and then follow that up with Indianapolis, Chicago, and then again Arizona before facing the Rams again in week 11. So he does have a little bit of a schedule that might give you some chances to throw him in there more than once if he continues to hold that starting spot. And then finally, the last quarterback that I would recommend, and this guy is going to be a complete just this week situation, it's going to be Daniel Jones for me. Mainly this reason's coming on the fact that the guy's played rather decently outside of week 3. Last week, he was an absolute monster. Daniel Jones has been running the ball better than Saquon Barkley in the earlier part of the season, and so far this year, he's thrown for almost 1,200 yards. It's almost averaging 300 yards a game, 4 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and 200 rushing yards. Now, he's got 3 games in a row, over 350 yards. The only thing that's really been holding him back has been those touchdowns. And the only bad game he's had so far is against Atlanta. And even then was a very passable. If you streamed him, you did fine. Going up against Dallas this week, it does have a chance to be a shootout game. We do know that Dallas likes to move the ball a lot when they can, and Daniel Jones likes to try to respond and keep up. He does get into these big games, and I think you can throw him into that lineup right now. He's quarterback 7 on the year, but I do think that they're going to hit a wall after that, playing against L.A., Carolina, then Kansas City, then Las Vegas before their bye week in week 10. So this may be the only week you're able to start him, but it really depends on how he plays this week. Coming up next on the list is going to be Samaje Perine. This is mainly just due to the fact that we do have the possibility that Joe Mixon will be out for at least a week, possibly leading up to multiple weeks. Last year, we did see Giovanni Bernard come in and actually have 2 weeks finishing as a top 24 running back. And there's nothing to say that Samaje Perine can't do the same. He didn't do that well in the 28% of the snaps that he had, 3 carries for 7 yards. But last season, when he did have an opportunity to take over without a Joe Mixon against Houston in Week 16, only saw 39% of snaps, 13 carries for 95 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not a very volatile player, but no Gio Bernard there means he's going to be getting a lot of opportunity. And if you've been someone who's been banged up at the running back position, or your guys just aren't performing and you need someone to flex in or at that running back too, Perine can get you there. Put him in. I like him as a flex without Mixon there. Another running back you can be looking at is actually going to be everyone's favorite wide receiver running back that's not Alvin Kamara, J.D. McKissic. So far this year, he's been surprisingly pretty solid again. Running back 30 on the year, so finishing as a running back 3 currently. So far this year, though, he has been splitting carries with Antonio Gibson, who's been getting more and more banged up each week. J.D. McKissic, someone that's going to be getting more and more pass-catching roles, especially with Logan Thomas possibly missing some game time. That's just going to give opportunity for J.D. to continue that streak of being that pass-friendly running back there for that team. I like him again as a flex option in a very deep league or a risky play, but kind of see what happens. If Antonio Gibson does go down completely and we get J.D. McKissic to that backfield all by himself, we could have a running back 2 on a weekly basis at that point with upside of a running back 1. Another running back you guys might want to look at, currently owned in 24.6% of leagues. This is a stash and hold again, and that's going to be Kenneth Gainwell. We're already seeing a more important role being given to Kenneth Gainwell. A lot of those snaps coming in the red zone where you want that running back to happen. Miles Sanders losing this opportunity. He does seem to be slowly fading away from that offense and seems to be taken out in very important times. He did almost nothing this week, only rushed the ball for 7 times, and that's not what you want from your running back. You're probably playing as a running back 1 if you're weak, or a running back 2 if you're not. Gainwell did almost get half of the same carries, but the pass catching opportunity that he got 8 targets, 6 of those coming in for catches for 58 yards. So that alone is a solid stat line for a receiver. Throw in a bigger carry share, especially if Sanders were to go down. So I'm recommending you guys stash Kenneth Gainwell, put him on your bench, and just see what happens as he seems to be getting more and more of that backfield. And it could come to an opportunity where Gainwell gets 20 carries by the end of the season, plus 5 to 8 passes. So that's definitely someone that's going on my bench and going to be sitting there. Another guy that's going to be taking over for a stud running back who might be missing some time is going to be Damian Williams. David Montgomery, possible to miss a couple weeks. Williams came in on just 8 attempts, averaging 6.8 yards on those carries, as well as finding the end zone. He does come in as an instant flex opportunity there because he's going to be the best running back in Chicago while Montgomery is out. So expect him to see 20 touches plus some pass catching work. Williams did get a little hit in the head. I think it was a concussion protocol or a mild injury. So there's a little bit of questionability on if he's going to be available from Sunday, but it's more than likely he is going to be. So another player that if you want to spend, a cheap fab budget of 5% or less, take a shot on him. If you're really running back needy, spend like 10-15%. Make sure you get this player because he's going to have a lot of utility. Going over to a couple receivers, I'm just going to remind everyone, Josh Gordon has been reinstated into the NFL. He is going to be if he's not already been grabbed up by your team, by your players against you in your leagues, he's going to be grabbed up very, very soon as he sees the field. He wasn't eligible this week, so we should be seeing him next week to be playing in Kansas City. And if there's any opportunity that he's coming in and possible 10% of what we saw Josh Gordon at his rookie season when he was Flash Gordon, he could easily fall into that number 2 wide receiver category there for Kansas City, which may take a little bit off the top of Kelsey, may take a little bit off the top of Tyreek Hill, but it could give us another option in that offense, which in the end, you never know, could open up the field more for those other 2 players to make bigger plays on less targets. So I like Gordon as another bench stash, just because it's going to take a little bit to see what he is. But if he comes into the league and he's very, very good, you're going to be spending a lot for him. And at that point, it might not even be worth the grab because of what you're going to have to spend. Another receiver, and Mike is going to love me for finally saying this, make sure you go grab AJ Green. It is obvious that without Rondale Moore playing at full capacity, AJ Green is that team's number 2 target. He is the number 2 red zone threat, and he's been getting 6 targets per game, every game. Just give him a TD, and it's an automatic wide receiver, high-end wide receiver too. Take away the touchdown, you're still finding yourself a nearly a flexible receiver week in and week out. I think AJ Green's definitely someone you grab for a 10+% budget, maybe a little bit less, because if he's still on the waivers for you now, this one big game shouldn't be having people grabbing for him unless they're really just following those targets. So I think a 5 to 10 budget would be more than enough to pick him up. And I think he's someone that has instant flex appeal, not high-end wide receiver 2-end numbers, because again, it's wherever Arizona wants to throw that ball. It could be a Kirk week. It could be an AJ Green week. But AJ Green seems to be like someone who's getting the most consistent work week in and week out. Another guy that I love, and I'm sorry if I told everyone not to play him this week because I was starting to tilt, but that's going to be Darnell Mooney. He seems to be Justin Fields' favorite receiving option right now in Chicago, and he absolutely balled, going for 124 yards this week. I really love it. It was obviously against Detroit's defense, and that only says so much. But the guy got 8 targets, 6 catches, and just looked like a monster. Even a little injured coming into the week. I do think that it's possible that Justin Fields starts getting that comfortability with him, and he develops a very strong role with Darnell Mooney, possibly letting him be the 1A, 1B with Allen Robinson. Coming up, though, I'm not really sure that I'm really digging down deep for a fab budget, but he is someone that last season had multiple games as a wide receiver too, and definitely shot up the rankings towards the end of the year. And I think you could be seeing him as someone who might have some wide receiver week finishes, but also is completely up to the discretion of how that quarterback decides to play there in Chicago. And that's something that you never really want to take the shot on, but when you do and it works out, it just feels so good. One more receiver that you guys can grab is actually going to be not Josh Gordon, is actually going to be Emmanuel Sanders. Now, he is showing to be the obvious number 2 receiver there in Buffalo. And Stephon Diggs, even though the team's number 1, isn't taking over the same catch percentage and target percentage that he was last season. So far, Emmanuel Sanders has been a very, very consistent touchdown scorer these past 2 weeks. He's the team's number 2 total target share, as well as having an average depth of target of 16.9. So he doesn't get, a bunch of targets, but when they do hit, you're getting them in big chunks. You're finding them open down deep in the end zone or for a play that he could take there, only having to beat one defender. Emmanuel Sanders does carry a low floor and a high ceiling, so it is a risky flex play. But on a good matchup, if he's not going to be extremely covered or it's against a weak defense, you have that opportunity for a red zone touchdown almost any given time. So I like Emmanuel Sanders as a bench play and a usable flex player if need be. Going over to the tight ends, if you are streaming this week, I don't know if I would roster anyone but one of these players, and it's going to depend on whether or not this last player continues to show how he did last week. The tight end I would recommend streaming this week and possibly holding if he continues to ball out the way he is, but Dawson Knox. We've been talking about him for a little bit now, and we've been telling you he gets a semi-consistent target there over in Buffalo, has been very confident with Josh Allen, and really started showing some flashes at the end of 2020 season. But last week, the man was an absolute monster. There's no reason that you shouldn't at least take a shot on him going into this week. Dawson Knox is someone that I don't even know. I don't know if he's going to be available for some people, because I do believe that he was someone a lot of people have been targeting. But I think that he has he has a good schedule coming up. It's up against Kansas City, Tennessee. After the bye week, he gets Miami, Jacksonville, the Jets, Indianapolis, and then New Orleans all the way through week 12. So those are all weeks you can definitely start him if you had your tight end that you've drafted either become a bum. If you got Logan Thomas and you need someone for a couple weeks while he's out, Dawson Knox can fill that very, very easily. I think that he's an absolute stud and is currently tight end 5 in PPR, rostered in only 35% of leagues. Moving on, we've got Dalton Schultz, another risky, flexible tight end. He seems to be the favorite of the 2 tight ends in Dallas. Jarwin hasn't been getting the same target percentage, but Schultz has been the one showing out on the targets that he has been getting. Able to find the end zone in multiple weeks in a row now. I think that he's someone that you can pick up for a week and stream him. This week going against the Giants gives you a great opportunity to just stream him on by and then get rid of him next week before they have a tougher matchup. Another player you could just take a shot on, take a look at. Definitely not the strongest out of the week, but it's actually going to be Max Williams out of Arizona. Only rostered in 4% of leagues, quietly sneaking into that tight end 1 category as tight end 12 in a full PPR league. Has had 2 weeks of 20-point games, and only one of them did he actually get into the end zone. Over the past 3 weeks, this man's had 15 targets, 15 catches, and a touchdown for over 155 yards. There is no reason you don't need to be at least taking a look at this guy. The only weeks he hasn't been able to perform are against the worst defenses in the league right now, Tennessee and Jacksonville. Other than that, the man's gotten 2 studly games. Going up against San Francisco next weekend, Cleveland the weekend after that, and Houston the weekend after that, I think you're looking at a situation where if you're streaming, you've got a low floor, high ceiling play, and it's more likely he's an 8 to 10 point week, but he does have that opportunity to go for big plays from Kyler and find himself in the end zone. The outside of AJ Green, the Cardinals don't really have a huge body player. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is big too, but they don't really have a huge solid red zone threat. And especially when Hopkins is going to be targeted or covered very heavily, Max Williams can just sneak in there as the little shifty, chubby white boy tight end that can just, no one thinks about, just walks in there, grabs it, touchdown. Great day for Max Williams. And then I'm going to finish it up with someone that I am thinking you want to roster if he continues to see the target percentage that he did last week. That's actually going to be CJ Uzomah. The man was a monster last week, obviously. 95 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 targets, and only 5 catches. He did look to be like one of Joe Burrow's favorite targets last week, especially in the 3rd down when he was converting like a absolute stud. The reason that I'm really interested in him is in the beginning of last season, before he tore his Achilles, he was getting 4 catches and averaging about 5.5 targets per game with 10 yards per catch. So in the beginning of the season last year, he showed that he was a very solid and consistent target there. And I think that's carried over this season as well, but we haven't started seeing it yet. Obviously, I think the fact that T. Higgins has been out has helped him, especially this week. But I do think he's someone that you want to pick up, because if he has another week like he has, like he had this week, you're not going to be able to grab him. Pick him up, see what his target percentage looks like. Is he being used in important situations on the field, or is he just getting his targets in garbage time? Last week, he was getting them on big drives when the team was trying to move the ball down the field to catch up and take that win. Keep an eye on him. I think he's going to be very solid, but don't get your hopes up too much. Moving on to some defenses you can stream for the week. I'm actually going to tell you Arizona's defense is not only streamable, but rosterable. Right now, they're owned in 31.5% of leagues, and depending on your scoring format, they're actually ranked as the number 5 defense on the year. They've been averaging 9 points in half-point PPR standard scoring over all 4 weeks, with 2 weeks finding themselves above a 15-point and having 2 weeks as the number 1 defense. And depending on your format, it's actually the number 3 defense, only owned in 28% of leagues. So make sure you guys go pick them up. They do have, again, a great schedule coming up, especially for teams that are possibly turnover friendly. San Francisco this week against Trey Lance could be a rookie's mistake game, and we see Arizona capitalize off that. Up against Cleveland in week 6 might be a little tough for them, but also a team that doesn't like to put up big offensive numbers. And then week 7, we got Davis Mills going up against the Arizona Cardinals at the Houston Texans. We're going to see Sack City again, and I'm so excited for it. So far, the Cardinals have had 10 sacks on the season throughout the past 4 games. So we're looking at a 2.5 sacks per game average, which is incredible, beautiful, and juicy. Another defense that you can be going to pick up is Dallas versus the New York Giants. Obviously, we're targeting Daniel Jones here and his turnover-friendly play style. Dallas's defense hasn't been the one to not allow a bunch of points, so you're not expecting them to be the number 1 defense on the week, but they are stream-worthy because turnovers will overcome the point total and the yards allowed. If they allow 28 points against the Giants, but Daniel Jones has 2 interceptions and they force a fumble, there's still going to be a top 15 defense on the week. So if you're streaming, you can go that route. They are pretty widely available, owned at only 22.5% of leagues. So make sure you guys check them out. Let us know who you guys like the most out of these lists, who we missed. If there's a player that you know about, let us know in the comment section. Who's that guy that needs to be on this list? We'll shout you out. We'll let everyone know that you think they're there, and we'll tell you why we agree with you. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Make sure you guys are joining that Discord. The link will be down in the description below. And again, please like this video, hit that subscribe button. Don't miss anything else, and hit that little bell icon up above. And we will be back tomorrow with a bunch more content, getting you guys ready for week 5 of the NFL. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.